My God. We could spend an hour today talking about all the moves that the Seattle Seahawks have made. Rob Staton joins us now, SeahawksDraftBlog.com. It's all brought to you by Superior Linen Service, family-owned and operated since 1926, committed to delivering the highest quality products and services to the greater Puget Sound area. Get your free quote today at suplinen.com. Give him a call, 253-383-2636. Rob is, of course, at SeahawksDraftBlog.com. Check out all his video content. He's got one of the best channels in the world on YouTube, Rob Staton Football. Follow him on Twitter at Rob Staton, and he joins me from the Puck Sports Studios built by Limback Lumber. Where would you like to start with all the moves?
Poor.
My God.
Whatever you want. I mean, I think the thing that's annoyed me the most today is the meltdown over Will Fries, who is a player that most people didn't even know anything about 2 weeks ago, and he's a very good player. You know, I think when you watch him on the tape, he's very good, Puck. But maybe you can explain to me why the world is ending now because he is signed for the Minnesota Vikings.
I don't think the world is ending, but I think people got excited about him when they heard his name, and when everyone is saying that two players in particular are really good at two spots that you are not good at, center and guard. And I think when it was Dahlman and Fries, and I agree. Listen, I don't know anything about Will Fries. I knew nothing about him, nothing at all. But I think when you see those are the two top, targets in free agency, and you need a center and you need a guard. Well, you need two guards. You're like, all right, if those are the top two guys, go get them. And when you don't get them, I think Rob, people are just tired of it because this is a decade where this organization in free agency hasn't been able to address the offensive line. So I don't think it's about the player Will Fries. It could be Will Jackson. He was the top guard on the market, and they didn't get him. And I think people are like, well, then what are we going to do?
Which is fine. What they're going to do is they're going to go into the draft, and this is a good offensive line draft. And I know that it's not ideal to have a very young offensive line, but it is also the best way to build your team in any way, whether you're drafting a quarterback, whether you're drafting an offensive line, defensive line. It is to have good young players and to draft well. And the Seahawks have got 5 picks in the first 92 selections in this draft. And when you look through the draft, there are players at all of the spots in round 1, 2, 3, and 4 where you could say he'd be a good option there, he'd be a good option there. I just think as someone who has been very critical of the Seahawks at times over the last few years, I just don't think this is a battle to pick with them. I think I had a look and at some of the reaction to this, and I think this is really interesting for any Seahawks fans who are feeling particularly down about Will Fries going somewhere else. There's a couple of points I would raise here. And Curtis Allen, who writes for my blog, did a very good. He made a very good point. Since the legal tampering period opened, over the cap have logged over 100 new contracts signed by players. Over 100 players have signed new contracts that have been sort of somewhat ratified. There have only been 7 contracts that have been 4 years in length or more, and there's only been 1 contract for 5 years, and that was for Will Fries. So the league is not doing deals like the one that Minnesota gave Will Fries. Yeah. They went above and beyond to get him. And this is a player coming off a broken leg. I like his tape. It is very, very good. But I don't think I did a good enough job on my blog because I came on and I'd said, you know what? He's got a very good zone blocking grade. A really good zone blocking grade according to PFF. And it was in the 90s. And he was one of the better options for the scheme. And do you know what? He played 67 snaps to get that grade last season. 67. So it's not many at all. If you go back the prior year, when he played a full season of 282 snaps, his zone blocking grade was 61.6. So I just think I understand the Seahawks fans want solutions. They want answers. They want to see John Schneider go and spend some money. There's cap space there. They want to see the Seahawks use it. They want to see some offensive linemen come in. I want to see a top 10 offensive line. What I don't want to see are players signed for the sake of it, or the Seahawks tied to deals like the Draymond Jones deal, which was an epic disaster. And I look at Gray Zabel and Tate Ratledge and the players in this draft and just think, that's the plan now. That's what they've got to do. Just pivot to that. They can be okay.
Yeah, but this is where lies the rub, though, with them. They have shown no ability to ever draft anybody in the draft. Except for 2. I mean, Cross, but I think, Cross is good. Lucas has been good when healthy, but I think for the detractors of that, let's go through the draft would be, well, you went through the draft last year. You drafted a guy in the 3rd round, and he was the 3rd string guard. I mean, I don't know, unless they change how they evaluate, especially the interior offensive line. I'm not sure what's going to change. Now, going back to Fries for a second, I agree. A 5-year deal, it's unheard of in the league. He, by the way, Schneider never gives these deals. He never goes beyond 3 years, by the way, ever goes beyond 3 years. But if you look at like what reportedly they offered him, a 3-year deal, it was the same years per year that he ended up getting with the Vikings. I would just say this. I mean, again, maybe they overpaid, or in terms of years. I don't know what his deal looks like. I don't know how much of it's guaranteed and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know if you got 3 out of the 5 years of it. I would. It's good by me. I just think that we keep every offseason is the same storyline with this team. Every offseason since 2014. How are we going to improve the offensive line? And we're sitting here now, 3 days into the legal tampering, and they've done nothing to address it. I just think that's a concern. And I know there's other guys out there, but there's a bunch of guys off this board that they didn't sniff. And, you know, maybe in the second run of guys, you know, that includes, I'm just looking at the list, Becton and Scherf and Jenkins and Zietler, Hernandez, Mason, Risner, Myers, those guys, maybe they get 2 of those guys. So I'm not saying it's not over yet. I'm just saying at this point, I understand the frustration from fans because I share it as well.
Yeah. I don't think that I can only give you my honest opinion on this. And my honest opinion is if this is my message to anybody who's listening to this who is a Seahawks fan, is don't worry about that. Because I don't think any of the names that you've listed there are worth worrying about missing out on. Honestly, this is a bad free agent group. Everybody's been saying it. The league sees it as a bad. Let me just push back on that,
Rob. You were singing the praises of Drew Dahlman and Fries, were you not? Fries, were you not?
I was. I absolutely did.
So what changed? What changed then?
Well, they just didn't sign them. The rest of the guys that you're talking about are not very good. So missing out on any of these players who are left. I'm not a big Tevin Jenkins person. I'm not interested in him. I'm not interested in Mekhi Becton. I'd be interested in Kevin Zeitler because I think he's just been a consistent force for a long time. But my expectations on him elevating Seattle's line would be low, and I would still be interested in drafting somebody to replace him if possible. I think Delman would have been a good signing. I'd have been interested in that, but they missed out on that. And, you know, there were a number of teams interested in him. He's chosen Chicago. You know, there's nothing to say that that's not an understandable thing. Will Fries has gone for nearly $18 million a year off the back of a broken leg to a deal that no other player has signed this year in free agency. I'm not sure that I'm going to hold the Seahawks responsible for that. I mean, there's a lot of teams that were in for him as well. The Giants fans are doing the same thing the Seahawks fans are right now about Will Fries. The other sort of context I'd bring to this is, listen, I want the Seahawks to address their offensive line as much as everybody else. But the problem is we can't just magic, you know, options here, either in the draft or in free agency. And there are about 20 teams who have got a bad offensive line, maybe even 25 that got a bad offensive line. And they're all trying to solve the same problems. And the Seahawks have got to try and find a solution. But let's not make the mistake in thinking they're the only ones, or that John Schneider is the only GM over the years that's had this trouble. There's a whole bunch of them that have had this problem.
I agree. I mean, there's a problem all over the place. But I mean, frankly, and I don't care about the other teams. I mean, I care about this team and how is this team going to get better. And again, this is like draft. But again, it's the same people making the decisions in the draft, and they haven't done it for a decade. I just think it's a concern. It's a concern that you still have not addressed it in free agency. You're unwilling to go past this 3 years on a deal in free agency. And then when you get to the draft, what evidence would any Seahawks fan present to you and me to go, well, they know what they're doing with the offensive line of the draft?
The only thing I'll just repeat what I just said is that there are a whole bunch of teams in this exact same boat. That every year the fans say we need to sort the offensive line. I know Miami Dolphins fans who, you know, they have the same conversation. You know, one reached out to me yesterday and said the same thing. You know, and there are a whole bunch of teams that just it's a major issue within the NFL. It's big an issue as exists. And I don't want to make excuses for John Schneider. I hope that the fact that I'm pushing back on this a little bit will be taken by some people in to mean something, because I have been as critical of John Schneider at times as anybody. And I just don't think this situation, as we sit here today, 2 days into the legal tampering, on the precipice of the actual free agency opening, and with 2 decent offensive linemen having gone elsewhere, that there's any reason why the Seahawks can't fix this offensive line. I think there are players in this draft that they will be able to draft and select. And yep, Christian Haynes didn't work out last year. Maybe that was Ryan Grubb and Scott Huff. Maybe the next staff will get that one right. In the past, they have not been able to draft these players and develop them. It is definitely something that John Schneider needs to get right. As someone who has just watched these players, though, and with 5 picks in the 92, I'm just going to give them the chance to do this. I really am. I'm just going to give them a chance to see if they can do this, and then I'm going to assess what they've done. If they come out of this draft and they haven't done anything, and Anthony Bradford's starting next year, and LeMaitre, and Oluwole Timmy, then you'll be hearing a very different strand from me on this.
Yeah, I guess the frustration I think would be if you go back to Clint Kubiak and what he said was Softy on the old station. He said, we need an elite center to run our system. Mm-hmm. Well, you're not going to find an elite center in the draft.
Probably not. But then,
then
was
I'm wondering
why.
Well, sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, with the exception of Drew Dolman, there was nobody else, and he chose to go to Chicago. There could be a myriad of reasons for that. Yeah,
that's a good point. I mean, it's his life. He maybe had an offer on the table from Seattle. I guess we'll never know that. I haven't heard any rumors that they even had an offer with him. But yeah, I mean, maybe it could have just been he felt that was a better fit for him. That's right. I mean, we always have to. Yeah, that's a good reminder. You have to remind yourself in free agency that there are some of these decisions, life decisions, these guys want to make for their family. I don't know. Maybe he's got a history of Chicago. Maybe his parents are from there. Who knows?
It's true. I think these are all the things that I'm as frustrated as everybody else. I want the Seahawks to win the Super Bowl, and they're not going to win the Super Bowl without a good offensive line. Yeah. It's just not going to happen. But again, like if we come out of this draft, and here's the thing that will annoy me: if they go into the draft and they do some interviews before it, let's say, and they say we want to be a trenches team, we want to build our identity through this draft, and then the first 3 picks are a receiver, a cornerback, and a tight end or a linebacker, then we will have a conversation afterwards. We go, what on earth are you doing? Especially if they pass on these offensive linemen. But if let's say that they took an offensive lineman with their first pick and one of the seconds, or one of the seconds, one of the thirds, for example, and then they get Zeitler to come in and be experienced, or maybe they go and sign Josh Myers, the Green Bay center, let's say, in the coming days. I think we'll feel very differently about it, and I don't know. I think maybe I'm just a bit tired of the weak puck, because I think the whinging and the complaining from the element of Seahawks fandom and media who think they're smarter than everybody else about Geno Smith kind of puckered me out. Right. Pardon the pun. And then the talk of endlessly need, Sam Darnold, what is the word that people keep using? He's pressure sensitive. Well, guess what? So's every other quarterback in the NFL. If you get pressured, what do you like? You are going to make mistakes.
Do you like more pressure sensitive or outside zone scheme?
Well, I'll take the outside zone scheme, because I think it's a scheme, as opposed to it's a bit like saying if you kick someone up the arse, that will hurt. When you say that a quarterback is pressure sensitive, you're stating
is an arse.
An arse. Yeah, I mean, I can't live with this. And I think there are there's a group of people on the internet who think everybody is stupid who doesn't agree with them on Geno Smith, and I've had enough. And
hey, we don't have to deal with it anymore, though.
It's a huge relief. I'm sure we'll hear about it every time he throws a good pass.
Oh, but yeah.
It's. I like what they've done. I think they've had a decent week. I think they've got cheaper and younger at quarterback. They've managed to get a third-round pick out of it. I think it was clear that DK Metcalf wanted out and the Seahawks wanted to move on. Mm-hmm. They've parlayed that into a second-round pick. They've got 5 picks in a range in the draft, which is strong. There are still some players. It's not a great free agency class. There are still some players there who, if they come in, I like the Marquez Valdez-Scantling signing. He's not going to be DK Metcalf. He's not going to be Tyler Lockett, but he made some plays in a 4-game stretch for the Saints.
I do like Jim pointing out, and I think astutely so. He did have 4 touchdown passes or receptions in 8 games compared to DK's 5 and 15.
And he can get downfield. Like he can stretch a defense. And again, he's not the answer, but I kind of looking at the draft board, and I see Jack Besh and think he's going to be a really good receiver, and Jalen Noel and Torrey Horton and Kyle Williams and Ty Felton, and I think you can find receivers in this draft. I think you can find offensive linemen. I think you can find pass rushers. I'm excited, and the one thing I tweeted out earlier, Puck, and this is maybe to raise the spirits of this conversation, because I kind of feel like we're butting heads a little bit on the offensive line thing.
No, but I don't think it's butting heads. I just would say this. I think it's just from my perspective with fans. I understand the frustration with not being. Maybe it's just because I'm here. I don't know. I don't know if that should have anything to do with it, because the internet can reach everywhere now, and we're all kind of connected. I just think it's a frustration of one particular position group that for a decade has not been addressed. And free agency starts, and we all get excited of reading those 2 big names, and then they don't even, they don't get either of them. And I just think that it would have changed the mood of the fans had they got one of them. And I know, to your point, and I agree, not many people even knew who both of these guys were. But I don't think that's important as much as they knew that people that watched them said that they were the 2 best players. And so they're like, all right, then we should get one of those guys, because we have this massive hole in our interior offensive line. And it's been that way since they traded Max Unger. And it just seems every year we're doing the same thing. And I think on top of that for Seahawks fans here is you have a baseball team where they have this one thing they've got to improve every single year, and that's their offense. And then they don't improve their offense. So you're like, we got baseball season starting. We haven't improved our offense. We got this football team with this offensive line. We still have not improved the offensive line. And I just think it is, I understand the initial wave of criticism. On the same time, and the flip side of it, we talked about this yesterday, and I agree with you that it's not over. There's still guys on that list that they can get. There's still the draft. It's not a finished product at all. It's similar in a way, and we'll get to the Geno trade and Sam Darnold. Similar in a way when everyone for like a day almost panicked when they traded Geno, because they're like, oh, what are we going to do? What are we going to like they didn't already have Sam Darnold locked up. No. I mean, I could just tell you that it was a done deal. Sam Darnold was a done deal when they traded him. They weren't going to trade Geno Smith and then go, well, what are we going to do now? Like, where are we going? So, obviously, they got a plan of what they want to do with the offensive line, but I just think that there is not a track record, and for this fan base with this particular GM, that he can get it right. I think that's fair, because he hasn't shown that he's been able to get it right.
Yeah, and there'll be people there that have not pored over the draft prospects and maybe sort of don't understand what's available, short of what they hear watching maybe the main players in the draft world discussing it. But I legitimately think that Gray Zabel is we've talked about it, is a perfect fit for the zone blocking scheme as a guard and a plug and play player. I think what he showed at the combine in terms of his explosive testing was, he hinted at elite potential. I think it's not to say that I get everything right, because clearly I don't, but over the years on the offensive line, it has been, I think it's been somewhat easy to predict who is going to be good. And I think Zabel has got a very good potential to be good, if not great. And Tate Radley's testing numbers, just unbelievable, just absolutely fantastic. And there's an option maybe for round 1. There's an option for round 2. And that fills me with a lot of confidence, and maybe they take a chance on a Josh Myers. So I do think that there is chance. I still think, I'm not going to give this up. Tyler Booker, I still think can play in his own system. I think the way that he tested, I've put the video on SeahawksDraftBlog.com. I know he tested terribly, but if you watch the video on Seahawks Draft Blog, you will see the guy can move. So I think he still remains an option there. So I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic that they can get a good young line together. They do need to get at least one veteran, and I'm sure they will. Can I pitch something to you, though?
Yeah,
This is what I was going to
just say, just to wrap that up, I would say this. If they got one, and these guys that are left, and I know there's some that you don't like and there's some like, but of the Becton and Scherf and Jenkins and Zietler and Hernandez and, a couple of Myers in there, and I'm just listing, Mason, but I think there's talk he may retire, Risner and all these guys. Mm-hmm. If they get a veteran, mm-hmm. one veteran, and then go the draft route, okay, fine. And again, and I think that's also on the table. I'm not willing yet to give up on. I don't think anybody should be giving up on Christian Haynes. Let's just see what a different staff gets his hands on it. But I would also say about this, I don't know anything about this staff. These new guys, I don't know if they're any good at all. They may not be good. They may not, because everybody comes in and it's like, oh, well, they got these new guys. Well, maybe they're not any good. We'll see. I mean, they've cycled through a lot of these guys, especially offensive line coaches. And every time they get a new offensive line coach, I hear it's always the same thing. Well, this guy he's great. He's great. And then they come here and they last a year or two, and then they're off to another one. So we agree on that one. Get a veteran, then something to draft. All right, what are you going to pitch me?
Well, I was thinking about this earlier because obviously they have a lot of cap space, and you wonder what are they going to spend it on, and you do sort of wonder with the diminishing numbers left in free agency, could they get a bit creative here? And it popped into my mind. I was talking to Jeff Simmons about this earlier, and October 2023, Seahawks trade a second round pick for a rental of Leonard Williams, and he played well. They signed him to an extension in free agency as he approached turning 30 years old. Huge impact on the field last year. Should have been Defensive Player of the Week twice. Huge impact and terrific for Mike McDonald. I just wonder if one of the things they may consider doing is giving the Bengals a ring for Trey Hendrickson. He is 30 years old. He has 35 sacks in the last 2 seasons, 17 and a half sacks in both of the last 2 seasons. He is one of the elite edge rushers in the league. The Bengals are in a bit of a tough spot because they have to find the money to pay Jamar Chase, the franchise T. Higgins, and they've got to work out a way to do that. They've brought in Mike Gesicki. They've been signing BJ Hill and others, so they're a bit strapped for cash right now. They can't pay Trey Hendrickson, so they have to work out, do we trade him now or do we lose him in a year? And the Bengals are notoriously difficult to trade with. But you have the stock, and there's been talk of maybe it'd take a second round pick, 3 years, 4 years maybe at a push of Trey Hendrickson producing at the level that he has for the last 3 or 4 years could turn this defense into an elite defense. And you can pay him $30 million a year because you have the cap space to do it. And I know there was that report, wasn't there? I mean, that cheeky bid to try and get Max Crosby out of the Raiders. It seems to me like they are on the lookout for somebody who can be a serious edge rusher. I just wonder, Puck, whether there may be a surprise yet up John Schneider's sleeve this offseason.
If you're telling me that this team can add a guy that had 17 and a half sacks last year. Oh, yeah.
And the year before.
Yes, of course. I mean, yeah, 100%. Because that's another thing. Like when we talk about on the defensive side of things, they have lacked a guy like this that is just, there's no scheming it up. You're just saying go beat your man one-on-one. Mm-hmm. They haven't had that guy in a long time. In a long, long time. One-on-one, beat your guy. I mean, Cliff to a degree was like that, but this is a whole nother level. And they haven't had that guy where you don't have to scheme anything for him. You just go beat your guy. 100% in. For a second round pick, sure.
And I don't know if the Bengals would do that deal. You just don't know. But the talk was initially they wanted a first. Now there's talk it could be good. It feels very similar to DK Metcalf, this. And he's a bit older, so you're going to have to pay him. So the same dilemma could emerge. You have got to get around Mike Brown, who never wants to trade anybody. And they may just hold on to him and let him go as a free agent. But because they're not run like every other franchise. It's run like a family business over there. So you've kind of got to work through that. But I just wonder whether they could do something like that, and that would be. I know the offensive line is the main thing, but that would just tilt that defense into a potentially an elite level then.
But we've talked about this a lot before. It's not just improving the offensive line; it's just improving both lines.
Mm.
You and I are and many others in a complete agreement on just building from within, trenches and build it out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, do you get more bodies and better players on both lines? Yeah, I don't hesitate at all, and not one bit.
And then you would, if let's say let's say you give the DK pick to the Bengals for that, you would still have a couple of thirds, a second, a first to attack the offensive line, to get some receivers, to potentially invest in the quarterback. So you would have the picks there to do that. I'd be very interested with that. Obviously, like I say, with big trades like this, they never seem to be that predictable. They kind of happen out of the blue. They really surprise you when they happen. But I think that would give everybody a lift because and it would sort of draw people's attention in a way that I don't think any other move right now could do.
It's a nice big Seahawks hug is what we're getting.
Yeah.
Hey, it's okay. Feel better, Jason. Just here's a big hug, and here's Trey Hendrickson coming along.
It could be Leonard Williams Mark II, and sure. he has been a success. So yeah. I'm really interested in this idea.
We haven't even got. I mean, we've talked so much about the line. We haven't even got to the DK trade or the Geno trade. My God, what did you make of the Geno trade and then getting Sam Darnold? Yeah,
I think the Geno trade's completely understandable. He's going to be 35 this year. If he wants $45 million a year, then that's not going to work. And we always said there's going to have to be a compromise here. And it sounded as if Geno had no interest in compromising. He wanted what he wanted. And the Seahawks moved off that very, very quickly. And, people were saying, the Seahawks did want Geno all along. And Geno was inspired. Come on. There's no way the Seahawks could pivot as easily and as fluidly as they did unless there was a conversation at the combine. Like, hey, listen, 100%. Mr. Darnold's agent here. What's it going to take to get this done if we need a quarterback? Okay, we're going to have that conversation, right? And then the trade happens. You anticipate that it could happen. You move on. You get a third-round pick. You pivot to Sam Darnold, and I'm totally just intrigued by Sam Darnold.
I think the Geno stuff, I think they've known for so long how much he wanted. And they went to that combine even before it, that they knew that they were gonna pivot off that as fast as they could. And when especially when they knew that Carroll got hired with the Raiders, they were like, it's perfect. It's a perfect fit. Geno going to the Raiders, and I just think that they knew I don't think there was much of negotiations at all. I just think that they knew whatever they gave him or offered him, they knew that it was going to be rejected right away. It was never going to be countered because he values himself as a top 5 quarterback. So it was an easy decision. They almost look like good guys. Well, here you go. We're not saying no to anything, but here you go, knowing that he was going to say, no, that's not good for me. And then, with Pete now being with the Raiders, it was just an easy fit for them. It's perfect.
And I just feel like some people were losing the plot a little bit, over the weekend. I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, we're talking about Geno Smith here, aren't we? They've not traded Joe Burrow. This is not Patrick Mahomes who's left here. It's Geno Smith. So let's just get that right. And the other thing I would say is that for all those people who were very unhappy with that, if Geno Smith's as good as some of them think he is, why didn't anybody else jump in? Yeah. Why did they only get one offer, as far as I can tell, and that was the 92nd overall pick in this draft? If he was as good as some of these people say, I'm pretty sure that the Titans and the Giants and the Steelers and all of these teams would have dipped the toe in as well, and they did not. The only person who did was Pete Carroll. Yeah. And that speaks volumes.
And then when we get the full details of the contract that come out, but it's probably going to be somewhere around really just 2 years and what is it, 50 million, 55 million guaranteed. My God, you can live with that.
Of course you can.
God, you got a pick coming back. That is an absolute no-brainer. Because if he's no good and stinks, so what? You didn't pay him anything. You go find another quarterback. Then you go find one in the draft. And I don't think they probably draft a guy this year. I don't think anybody would be surprised if they spend one of those picks. What are they? If they currently have 4 in total between the second and third round, I wouldn't be surprised they use one of those on a quarterback at all.
Completely agree. And then on DK, I just think it just felt a little bit as if he wanted a change, and Seattle was more than willing to grant that, and they just took the best offer that was available now. And it would have been nice to get a higher pick. It would have been nice to maybe get a first rounder for him, but he is never. How many years did we? We were having this conversation last year. Maybe Ryan Grubb's the guy who's going to finally unlock him, and it didn't happen. And then he's going to go to the Steelers, and who's going to throw him the ball in Pittsburgh? Like, I'm great for him that he's got this huge contract, but they don't have a quarterback right now,
and a coordinator that wants to run the football.
Yeah.
It's not let's air the ball all out over the place. They want to run the football. So, with DK, and I think we chatted about last week, I think that there's a regret that they didn't get more out of him, whether it was the fault of the quarterback, the coordinator, whoever. Just felt that he wasn't elite. And I don't think it's all just on the coordinator. I don't think it's all just on the quarterback. I think he plays a part in it. How much of the pie, when you divvy it up, does he play a part in it? But he shares a responsibility for it. But yeah, it didn't. He should be a guy based on his size, athleticism. Should be the number 1 wide receiver in the NFL. It shouldn't be close.
Well, if anybody wants to feel good about the prospects in this draft, I would just say a bit of homework for anybody. Go and search for Jack Bech, and that is spelled Bech on YouTube. And he is somebody that in round 2, I'd be very interested in.
Where did he play, Rob?
He played at TCU. Okay. So he's Jack Bech. He's a very, very interesting receiver and could play as a good complement outside to Jackson Smith and Jigba. So I'd go and check him out.
The overall class of the wide receivers from what you've seen, doesn't have that elite guy other than, I guess, Hunter. But when you get past that, good depth, good, just kind of good, solid guys all the way around.
I think very good in terms of the depth, just not good in terms of the elite players. So there's not going to be, Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr. in this draft. But just looking at my board, I've got 6 players that I think are sort of late first, second round. I then have, if you just give me 2 seconds, 9 players that I would take, back in round 2, round 3. And then, round 4, I would say there are probably about 8 players that would take, in round 4. So the numbers are there, and you will be able to get, I think, a couple of receivers in this draft who are not just players that you bring in and pan out the depth. I'm talking about players like, I could easily see Ty Felton being the next Tyler Lockett. Okay. I could easily see Torrey Horton having a really good career in the NFL. So Jalen Noel, people like Jaden Higgins. So Kyle Williams, there's some really good players in this draft that you can get. So I think that will have played a part with this as well. I think the Seahawks have looked at their receiver board and gone, we're comfortable trading DK because we know we can get receivers.
All right, before you go check out Rob's latest work, SeahawksDraftBlog.com. He's got a story up there. Relax. He's channeling his inner Aaron Rodgers. To all of us as Seahawks fans. Relax. He also has a piece up there on Will Fries there as well. Go check that out at SeahawksDraftBlog.com. What else you got up there currently? What else are you working on? And what about up on the YouTube channel?
Yeah, YouTube channel, there's a lot of reaction to everything that's been happening. And if there is any big news, I will probably jump on a live stream immediately and get into that. I'm working on a piece at the minute, which will be up soon, which looks at the options at 18, round 2, round 3, just to give people an idea as to what could be realistic in this draft. And I think that might ease some of the concerns that people have got about certain positions. And then I've also got a piece that I'm working on about players that I think have got a really good chance to be, great players. And not just talking about the players who are going to go in the top, 5. I'm talking about players who, the gems, the sort of second, third round, fourth round picks that that could end up being really good. So stay tuned for that.
He does all the work, man. He busts his ass off, and I'm sure you guys all know that right now. SeahawksDraftBlog.com. Follow Rob on Twitter, Rob Staton, and then check out the great YouTube channel. He's getting on there all the time, especially when news breaks at Rob Staton Football there on YouTube. All right, my friend. Cheers. Get some sleep. Okay.
I need it. it.
We'll talk to you next week.
See you later.
There he is, Rob Staton, SeahawksDraftBlog.com. And Rob, again, joins us every single week. It's brought to you by Superior Linen Service, family-owned and operated since 1926. Committed to delivering the highest quality products and service to the greater Puget Sound area. Get your free quote today. Suplinen.com. Give him a call, 253-383-2636. Find the full Rob Staton episode up on YouTube. When you're there, please subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment. Also, Rob will be part of the Daily Puck Drop. That full show for your podcast, favorite platforms, Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. And, of course, always up at pucksports.com.